You're listening to the new WCEG network on WCEG Click live stream tab or watch us live on your smart television. YouTube, WCEG network. I am Damita Chatman, your host for the next hour of Take a Stand. We're the worldwide community empowerment group where we speak life into the community. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and on Instagram at WCEG Talk Radio. Last but least, this is the disclaimer. The topics and opinions are those of the show hosts and guests and not WCEG's network. Thank you for your continued support. I want to thank all the councilmen that were invited to come in. We got two that should be coming on. First of all, I want to thank you guys so much. And I just want to hear from you guys, your perspective. And I'm going to put this out there quickly. This show is not about the Black man or the Black woman. We've did shows with Black women. And so this show is basically going to be with the Black male, and we'll do a follow-up. Again, I want to thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Glad to be here.
Likewise, I hope you have me in, Ms. Chapman.
Okay, Miss Damita disappeared on us. Maybe her video went out. So you're listening to the Take a Stand on WCEG I'm just going to fill in momentarily until we find out what happened. We have rain here in Atlanta, so sometimes you know what happens with that and your video. Mr. Baker, welcome, but we can't see you or Mr. Corey Reeves. So if you guys can join us, we will be ready to get the show started when Ms. Damita comes back on. But we would like to welcome you to WCEGTalkRadio.com, your worldwide community empowerment group. As Ms. Damita was letting us know in the opening, you can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. For those that would like to view the show, you can go to our Facebook Live pages as well. So it looks like I'm going to have to do a little, she's coming back in right now. Wonderful, wonderful. So Mr. Baker and Mr. Corey Reeves, we need you. Ms. Damita is coming back in. We're going to give her a chance to connect back. Sorry for the delay. There we go.
Yes,
Mr.
yes.
Corey, there we go. You went out again. Mr. Baker, we can't see you at all. Mr. Baker, are you with us?
Yes, I'm
Hi,
here.
Mr. Corey.
Yes, indeed. I'm here. I was entertained.
Okay, we need to see you. We can't see you. We only see your profile picture. Mr. Corey, can you turn your device horizontal? Can you give us a horizontal view? Mr. Corey.
Is that better?
No, we can't. We see you, but you're freezing up.
Yeah, well, I guess that's that due to this rain around here, but I'm at the horizontal view. Hold on, let me.
Okay, it's okay. Mr. Damita made it back, so.
Yeah, we're going to go on. That's why I like the folks to come on a little early so we won't have this, but that's okay. First of all, let us go and start. We're going to start with Councilman Jackson first. Give us maybe a 2-minute about you, and then we're going on down to the next.
Oh man, you put me on the spot with all these great men up here. Anyway, Councilman Brian H. Jackson. I'm from the city of Jacksonville, North Carolina, home of Camp Lejeune Marine Corps Base. I say this is the realville, is what I always call it. But I'm glad to be with you. I'm actually what else can I say? I'm in my first term, which actually is supposed to usually would have ended in December, but we're under redistricting right now. So we're going through that process. It has delayed the election, and right now they have to recount the census and figure out the different boundaries now. And so it looks like our election won't be till March of next year. But I'm a member of the National League of Cities. I'm at-large board member for the National League of Cities. I'm just glad to be here. I'm just glad to serve. I left my hometown, never expecting to come back home. But 13 years ago, I decided, for the greatest reason I could have ever had is my mother. She was here, and fortunately, it's the best decision I ever made, really, realistically. And then other people served, so I thought it was just my time to step up in my community. I was gone for years, had different experiences, and I know it's time to change in this area. So that's what I wanted to bring to my community. It's been a uphill battle, as you brothers already know, especially coming back home. So like they said, a prophet. Now I don't say I'm a prophet, but I understand how what they mean by has no honor in his own community, his own home. So, but I'm trying to do what I can for my people where I stand. But anyway, thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, Ms. Damita has dropped off again, internet issues. It's okay. We'll go now with Mr. Jamie Dixon. You were the second one to come on, so we'll let you tell us who you are and a little about yourself.
Thank you. My name is Jamie Dixon. I am a council member here in the city of Lima, Ohio. We are home to the Abram tanks for the United States military. We build them right here in my own backyard, as well as a Ford plant where we build F-150 engines. I am the youngest elected city official in the city of Lima. I am in my first term. At the end of my first term, election is actually it's November 2nd, and I am running unopposed this time around. So I have another 4 years coming at the top of the year under my belt. So I will have a stint of 8 years in my second term at the end of that. The reason why I wanted to become a councilman for the city of Lima is because after returning home from college and managing a hotel, I came back home to help and aid with my grandparents. And at that time, the neighborhood in which my parents bought a home in their late 20s was no longer the neighborhood that my brother and I had grown up in. Many of the houses were vacated and were now rental operated and occupied by renters. Here in our city, we have about 52% renters and the rest are homeowners. And with that being said, one of the main issues and ideas that we are dealing with right now is housing infrastructure. And we are battling that, with which we set on a task force, which is a housing task force, to make sure that we tackle some of those issues, concerns, so that redlining is no longer an issue in our city when it comes to individuals buying homes or wanting to occupy homes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dixon from Lima, Ohio. Next, we will have Mr. Corey Reeves. You came in next, so we will have you to introduce yourself and to let you all know Ms. Damita's power went out. So I have her on the phone and we're gonna keep this going. We're gonna keep it going. So Mr. Corey Reeves.
Hey, so that's good. That's a good thing with technology. You can always keep it going.
Okay.
And so, absolutely. And yeah, so I'm Corey Reeves, City Councilman, District 5 for the city of South Fulton. This is also too where I grew up, where I was born and raised. And you know, after just seeing some things not done for so long, we actually became from unincorporated to becoming our own city May 1st, 2017. So we're getting ready to turn 5 next year, next May 1st. And so ran for basically all the same things that my former co-host here was just said. And so it's to make a technical change, you know, before you can become a landscaper, you want to cut your own grass. So, you know, it's kind of that kind of mentality. And so certain things I just take to heart and take personal, because, you know, I do want to see the city succeed as a whole, and I do want the best things for the city. And I know that with infrastructure, with the proper infrastructure, you can build anything. And so, and we face some of the same challenges, as Ms. Dixon just said. We face some of those same challenges. And so it's just interesting to see that that's Ohio, we're in Georgia, but those challenges in certain communities that there are, in particular where we grew up and how we came out, is that to see that it's kind of disheartening. But you're here for every action that's taken, that's good. But conversely, you have corrective action. And so, and there's a process, in the process in itself. And we're built for it because we just taken a stand.
Thank you so much, Mr. Reeves. Mr. Brian Jones, you're next.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Brian Jones, City Councilman at Large for the City of Union City. I have been on the City Council for 14 years in Union City. I came back to, well, I say came back because I am a native Atlantan. Grew up in the unincorporated area of College Park, which is now in the city of South Fulton. Went to Morehouse College, you see the M back there. When I graduated from school, looking for a place to live, I knew the area in the South Fulton area because it's where I grew up. So I found a place here in Union City. Didn't expect to get on city council. It kind of fell in my lap. I was the HOA president and leaving that office and kind of rolled into running for city council because we had a split board. There was 2-2 and the mayor always broke a tie. But I figured it was time for some young voices on the council. The demographics have changed so much over the last 30 years in South Fulton that I figured it was time for a young voice. I got on at the age of 28 years old, and now I've learned a lot that I didn't expect to learn, that you don't learn in college. You kind of learn it on the fly when you get in city government. We are a member of the National League of Cities. We are members of GMA, Georgia Municipal Association, and I have served on the board for GMA for a couple of years, learned a lot there. And I'm just excited to go to conferences and bring back opportunities for my city. NLC has been great for exposure and opportunities from the federal level and learning what other communities are doing that we can do in our own city. So I'm happy to be on this call today with my other brothers, hear from them, hear what's going on in their cities and things that we can talk about and share that we can do for our respective cities and make each city better than we found it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Baker, you're on and we still can't see you today. Are you with us?
I'm with you guys.
Okay, could you unmute? I'm sorry, you need to unmute. We're having
Hello,
a few.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Yes.
Yes, I'm working on the screen. I have you guys on my phone actually right now, but I don't want to belabor the process or slow you guys down. But I am Councilman Mark Baker, Dr. Mark Baker, the city of South Fulton. I represent District 7 on City Council. I have been reelected. This is my second term, first full 4-year term as we became a city in 2017. I am originally from Chicago, but I came here after graduating Dillard University in New Orleans for graduate school at Clark Atlanta, where I attended and received my master's degree in criminal justice. I served as sergeant of the police department there, and I went on serving my last 10 years until retirement in 2015 as a school resource officer at Fulton County Schools. I taught at Clark Atlanta University current issues in African American studies. And I was the first male professor of women's studies at the university, where I just finished my PhD in African American studies and Africana women's studies this past May at Clark Atlanta University. But while in office, which this is my fourth year, I've been big on progressive policy, I would say. I was the first individual to abolish Columbus Day in the state of Georgia, third to decriminalize marijuana in the state. I banned the box on those applications for convicted felons so they can get further in the process of applications. I'm the author of the Development Authority legislation and the URA, where I currently serve as Envision South Fulton's chairman. That's our development authority. But I passed progressive legislation like Juneteenth being a holiday before Joe Biden. The only legislator to pass Breonna Taylor's law, which ended no-knock warrants in our city. Hashtag A Can't Wait, the Crown Act, along with Councilman Reeves, who's on our line, that allow our brothers and sisters to work in the city of South Fulton with their natural hair and non-discriminatory practices. And I'm just proud to serve on the Progressive Council. Lastly, and big, I can't forget, I'm the author of the state of Georgia's first reparation law as well, reparations legislation that was passed last year. So I'm very proud of our brand new council, the work we've been able to do, the things we've been able to accomplish, and just happy to serve a progressive city. And according to the National League of Cities, which we are a part of, given that we are 92% African-American, we're the blackest city in America, and I'm proud of that as well.
Okay, thank you all so much for those introductions. And I know this question is going to probably sound redundant, but I know that you've given us some of the current, you've given us an overview of your overall platform that you have provided for your community. But can you tell us now, and we're going to start again with our Councilman Jackson, to tell us what do you bring to the table currently for the community? What's happening right now for your community that you are personally involved with? And if you could give us about, since we do have 6 of you, 2, 4, 5, 6 of you, we're going to cut it down now from the 2 minutes to give everybody an opportunity. So if you can wrap it up for me, give me a good 30, no, I won't go more than 30. Give me about a minute. Give me about a minute on what you're currently doing. What's the most important issue right now that you're providing for your community?
Well, I'm glad I'm a poet, so maybe I can work this. Anyway, my biggest issue right now is affordable housing. Our big issue is that we're primarily military. So when they do the medium income, they look at the military, which is, they say $50,000 a year, which we're about 40% service industry. So it creates a big issue with those who live here in Jacksonville that don't work on the base or have no connection to the military. So I'll say that's the biggest issue right now that I'm dealing with, affordable housing.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Dixon, can you tell us what are you currently working on that's number 1 on your list?
Well, number 1 things, I think I have 2 subjects that goes hand in hand. It's housing and neighborhood associations, because we do know that when neighborhoods thrive, so does our downtown and the rest of our city. And so one of the things that we are working on hard for right now is housing. We do know that we need low to moderate income housing, we need upper housing, but we also need that middle income based type of housing as well, so that we can serve all of the needs of our community.
Thank you. You said housing and you used another term right after the housing. What was that again?
Neighborhood associations.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Brian Jones, can you share with us what is your number 1 top priority that you're working with in your community?
Wow, you made me choose number 1. There's so many, but I will say the biggest one is economic development. Many times in our communities, we say we want certain developments to come, but the residents assume that you could just call up Popeyes and they're going to show up, or a Chick-fil-A, or even shopping centers. They just don't show up. You have to go to them. And so one of the biggest things that I'm working on is getting in front of those companies to get them to Union City, tell them about our story, tell them about the demographics in our area, and push for them to build in our community, so we have opportunities in our community to shop and sit down for restaurants that are not fast food.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Mr. Reeves, can you share with us your number 1 top priority that you're working on with the community?
Policy updates and policy changes. And so there's certain things that's in a language that allows for things to happen. And so we're just going to go plug the hole. And so, but you do that through policy change and policy updates. So that's what we're currently working on right now.
Thank you so much. Mr. Baker, good to see you today. Thank you for joining us. We can't hear you. Okay, you may have to come out and come back in. If you would go back to your audio maybe, or either you can log out and come back in, and I'm quite sure that may clear you up as well. And I'll save that question just for you, okay? Okay. So we're gonna, while he's getting his audio together, we know that so I've been hearing affordable housing coming from Mr. Brian out of North Carolina. And that's the beauty of this forum, is because you all are kind of in different locations and there are different community needs, but I'm hearing housing and economic development and then policy changes and updates. So then that brings me to a question, and I know I'm kind of getting off the list a little bit from what Damita was going to, Mrs. Chatman was going to bring to the table. So we keep hearing this gerrymandering going on. We keep hearing that we know that these policies and changes are causing other problems in the community as well. So then that's going to take me back to another question then. So how do you think that these public policies that are currently going on right now are helping to keep destroying two-parent households? You know, they always want to say that Black men are missing from the families. How can we take all of these issues that we're bringing to the table that seems to be across the board in all communities, no matter where your region is, no matter what geographic location? Can you tell me first, and I'll see if Mr. Baker, we can hear from him yet. Can we hear you, Mr. Baker? Give me a mic check.
Testing.
Perfect. So now I want to pose this. So now, while we have you, and I'm going to go back to the previous question, but can you tell us, based on the information that we have received from our other guests here today, that we've been hearing affordable housing, economic development, and policy updates and changes, since we are knowing that it's across the board, no matter what area, geographic location you're in, can you tell us how do you think these public policies have helped to continue to destroy two-parent households and say that Black men are missing, that we're not prevalent in our community or our homes? How do you think public policy has played a role in that?
Well, I think that if you look at some of the policies that I address, actually, it's interesting. In my generation, my mom can tell me where she was when Martin Luther King died or Kennedy died. For me, it's Tupac in '96. I remember exactly where I was, but his words, ring out to me when he says the power is in the people in politics we address. I think that when you have laws that cause for the incarceration of Black men.
You went out again. You went low again on us. Your voice went out.
Unfair criminal justice, criminal injustice, I would say, that occurs on a regular basis, disproportionate sentencing, economic castration. All of these things play a major role in the dysfunction of our family, but you can't solve a problem at the stem. You have to go to the root. And the root of it is just our basic knowledge of self, as well as education, And I think that our schools have failed our children. You can't teach a child you don't love. You can't teach a child you don't understand, and you can't teach a child that you're afraid of. And me working in the school for over 10 years, I've witnessed that, but I think you have to solve the problem at the root and not at the stem, which we try to do often.
And I hear you on that. And thank you so much for bringing that point up. So now, Mr. Jones, you are shaking your head. Mr. Corey Reeves, all you gentlemen, Mr. Jackson and Mr. Dixon, you all kind of fell right in line with that. So I want to pose that same question to you, Mr. Reeves. Can you tell us how do you think, since you're working with and feel that policy updates and changes should be made, how do you think that has played a role in destroying our two-parent household and our Black men?
Well, it's just what Mr. Baker said, it's pretty similar to what I said earlier, and get to the root. And that root is policy, and the power is in the pen, and the power is with the people. But it's on the politics will adjust, because we have to adjust. And that's just plain and simple. And then we leave our directive, and then let our directors go out there and execute the plans in the best way that they know how, according to the policy that's set for them in place.
Thank you so much. Mr. Jones, can you tell us your views on how do you think public policy has helped destroy two-parent households and continue to destroy our Black men whom society say are missing from our community?
Well, I have to agree that with Councilman Baker, a lot of this goes back to history. It goes back long history of not having access and equality to opportunities. There's too many times where Black men and white men all go for the same job, but the white man will get it before a Black man will. So those things that have been ingrained in society for several decades are part of the root problems. But at the same time, getting us Black men on elected boards is a start. We have to be able to be at the table. There's a thing that you'll hear saying where they say, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And we've been on the menu too long. So now that Black men are at the table, we're able to bring these policies forward. And it can be just as simple as making sure the police officers in our community look like us, or there's training for the old guard that's there so that we can say, look, their demographics are changing. Policing is changing. There's some things that you need to do different instead of just looking at the people that are driving through the neighborhood and then doing a stop and you say, well, what did you pull somebody over for? Just because you're racially profiling them, that's not going to work anymore. So just on a local level, it starts there. But when we start having a seat at the table, we can go to our state delegation and have a conversation. And then that conversation can get to a point where it is changing the laws at the state capitol. And then now working with National League of Cities, GMA, we're all at the table to change policies that come from DC. And I know that it helped in that CARES Act because a number of us were at the table talking about the funding that needed to come back to local communities because we needed the money to do things in our cities that were impacted due to COVID. So having all of us Black men at the table is an opportunity to change the dynamic and the conversation that has been one-sided for so long.
Thank you so much. Wow. I got a lot out of that, and I'm trying to kind of not interject because I want to hear from everyone. However,
right.
But I do hear you, and as Shirley Chisholm said back in her day during the 70s, that if you don't have a seat at the table, just bring your own folding chair. Amen. And so I think we're going to go to the next one. Mr. Dixon, can you tell us how do you feel that the policies that's going on affect the impact of Black men being visible and saying they're missing from our family unit and community? What do you have to say about that?
Yes, I would agree with Councilman Jones, who stated that, if you're not at the table, you're part of the menu. And when you look at that, even in our own city, we're about 33% African-American in our city. And when you look at our juvenile detention center, we are 89% of the population that is incarcerated in there. And then what we have also started to see, we start to see legislation that is now binding over our youth at the age of 16 and 17 and holding them till their 17th and 18th birthday so that they may be charged as an adult for a petty crime. We have to make sure that we have the legislation in place that will allow these young kids, because what they're doing is they're taking these 16 and 17-year-olds and they're grouping them as adults. And they're saying, oh, these young men, no, these are kids. These are somebody's babies. And we have to stop the prison. We have to stop the school to prison pipeline that is also going on in our communities around this nation. We have to also make sure that we have things in place so that there is resources in the communities. One thing that really frightens me is a couple of years ago, we did a test in our local schools. And the question on the test was, where do you place your bike at night? And the answer, the correct answer was supposed to be either in a storage unit or a garage. And because this young man did not see that as one of the options, he created his own line and said in my front room. And so the person that was given the test failed him off of that question. But simply, we have to make sure that we meet the people where they are.
Absolutely.
He didn't have a place to place his bike. So every night he brought his bike inside and placed it in the living room.
All right now. Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, Mr. Dixon. And you all are hitting on critical, making critical points. And Mr. Jackson, I haven't forgotten you on that question. And that's why we have to meet individuals and meet families where they are. And so these standardized tests and certain things that are not created and designed for our community. And I'm not going to break off and go into that now because that's a whole nother topic, but you're absolutely correct, Mr. Dixon, and thank you so much. Mr. Jackson, tell me, what are your views on the Black men and policy and men missing from our community?
I have to say ditto, ditto, ditto. Brothers covered it. I've talked to Professor Baker about that before myself. It come in my area, what I see is a lack of participation, a lack of education. And then we have a lot of stovepiping in the area. Like he said, if you don't have a seat at the table, you're on the menu. And a lot of times we're not coming to the table. So we can't set policy. I tell folks, I stand up on the dais and act a stone fool. I'll be one fool, one vote. You have to show up with me. Unfortunately, we just had an issue where you actually had, because of the affordable housing issue and the lack of upkeep by a property manager, we had a issue. The city placed, and I didn't even know about it, notice to vacate on a lot of these homes, and they gave them 2 months to do it. Okay, so that became a huge issue, and this became the rallying issue that finally get people involved. Some of the people I was talking about getting involved with this before that I asked them to get involved called me today about getting involved. So we're late to our movement. We have to be more proactive instead of reactive. We can't change policy unless we support and become those that sit at the table to address the policy. And that's my issue. You go back to the issue of the money that came straight down from President Biden to the municipal, because we had one of the areas was infrastructure, which meant water, sewer, and broadband. But my city manager saw the opportunity to use that for a project to help develop an area. We don't even know. We're primarily, service industry. So I'm like, we don't even know the effects of COVID yet.
Right, and you're absolutely correct. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I try to cut this off. So the reality is, because I voted against that, and it was part of our budget to do that project. I voted against that, and I voted against the budget. I stood by myself to do it, trying to explain to the people, you got to show up before these things happen.
Absolutely.
This is your money. This is your tax money. So.
Right, and I hear you, and thank you so much. And I'm glad you mentioned about monies that are coming in, and because we even had our governor here in Atlanta, in the state of Georgia, to say that he was not going to accept any more federal funding. Anyway, I'm going to leave that alone because I'm going to make it a personal issue. But these are the policies. But that's
franchising the people.
Right, and so that's why when you mentioned it, Mr. Reeves, about policy updates and changes and so forth, for the governor to say that he will not accept and use any more of the federal funding coming in, you're cutting people's livelihoods off. And anyway, I'm not gonna go into any more on that one because that's another show.
And by the way, add to that. Make sure you add to that. The number one thing, he had just decreased jobs.
Absolutely, and that's why I say, man, we probably need to go over a little bit past our time, but we still have about 30 minutes. We're going to get some more. We have some more questions.
That's the sequel.
That's right. Sending me these questions. She's sending me these questions in, but then I'm kind of got a little my own stuff going too here, so I'm going to take my personal feelings out. But the next question I want to pose, because since we are talking about the family unit, we're talking about Black men supposedly being missing, but that's just another distraction for others to come into our business and to our community. And so I want to come to you now and ask you, since we're talking family unit and talking about women in our community and men in our community, have there been others, or you think policies that are coming in that would kind of separate the men and women that are leaders in our communities? Sometimes they try to make us fight amongst each other. So how do you work well, or do you work well with the women that are in leadership in your communities? And we can start with, let's go with Mr. Dixon. How do you work with the women leadership in your community in Ohio?
The women leadership in our community is phenomenal. Just 2 years ago, we were able to turn over a seat in city council that was held by a Republican woman, and now it's a Democratic woman who holds that position, that has been in this community and working for a corporation in our community for over 30 years. In the term that I ran for council, we flipped another seat who had been held by a man, an African-American man, but who posed himself as a Democrat, but was really listed as an undercover Republican. And now we have that seat occupied by an African-American woman who is also a Democrat. Right now, Lima's in the fight of its life. Right now, we have a mayor who has been in power for 32 years in the position that he has held. He has brought in 4 years ago an African-American woman who is a previous magistrate from the Chattanooga, Tennessee area, but is homegrown and fed right here in Lima. She is now on the ticket for the mayoral race that will be taking place in November here in our city. And this will be a historical moment, because either way the ticket goes, there will be a female mayor of our city. Right. And hopefully, just hopefully and prayerfully, that lady that will be holding office will be Sharita Smith, who is currently our chief of staff and has been running a $32 million budget for the last 4 years. So hopefully we do have someone that is coming into power that is effective enough to make the change, but also have the innovation ideas that this city needs to move forward.
Thank you so much. Mr. Baker, can you tell us how is your working relationship with the women in local government and leadership here in your area? We can't hear you.
Can you?
There we try it again.
At all?
Yes, we can hear you now. Yes, we can hear you now.
Yeesh. I apologize.
That's okay.
I know it got to be me, because I'm just. I know
okay. It's okay.
So I would say this, I'm grateful to the women who inspire me to lead, starting with that, because really we're late to the party, I would say, as Black men, and I apologize. Oftentimes, again, it goes back to solving the problem at the root and not the stem. Dr. Jawanja Kanjufu actually was the one who said that Black families tend to raise our daughters and to love our sons. I don't know if you listen, we raise our daughters and we love our sons. What does that mean? It means, like, if you remember Dee from What's Happening, she had all the restrictions. Raj can do anything. And Dee was always, Mama, why Raj get to do all? You go iron and you make sure you're ready for church in the morning. Our families, because of there has always been a conspiracy that we have to counter to destroy Black men. Most of our single moms, especially, they just love on their sons and allow them to grow without consequence. And ultimately, when we're looking for the counterparts to say, why, how is my relationship with them? Because we're not there. When we first started our city, I served with just with just one other councilman, and it was the rest of the board was all women. It's one of those things that our Black women have always been the strongest in the family and the bond that holds our family together. And it's nothing different when it comes to politics. And it's sad too, that we refer to our Black women as strong. We're probably the only group of men, as Dick Gregory said, that refer to our cars as beautiful and our women as strong. And it's like, it's so much that needs to be changed. But if you think about it, if you go back to post-traumatic slavery disorder, where they ripped our bodies apart in front of the rest of the family, the mother had to be strong because she had to tend to those children who were left behind. And she raised her son to be meek, to not be confrontational, to not be combative, to not be as assertive as her young daughters would be oftentimes. So it's like there are remnants of that still in our society. A lot of men are afraid to talk with bass in their voice. A lot of men are, I'm told to smile oftentimes. It's like, nah, like I shouldn't have to make other people feel comfortable when to be conscious in America, as James Baldwin said, is to almost be at a state of rage all the time. It's so much stuff that's going on, so many atrocities that we're dealing with. And when we're in a position to make a difference, we're just on the front line and ready to go. And I'm grateful for those leaders who have been trailblazers in our community. My Senator Donzella James, for one, who's been here forever. And she's always giving me encouraging words and things that I need to do to go faster and further. So I'm grateful for the female leadership, but I'm also prayerful for my brothers to help, excel as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Mr. Reeves, thank you. Can you tell us how do you work with the women that are in leadership and playing major roles in your community?
Absolutely. I have a great working relationship with the ladies who are in leadership, plus our city manager as a leader. We have a lot of director positions that are filled and occupied by women. And I agree with Councilman Baker that, but at the same time, it's, we got to take stand, right? And, come up to what the natural role is for us to do and to take leadership. And I've replaced a woman for this seat. And so, but not to say anything other than, but it's the idea of we all had a mother. And so we have to understand, look at what our mother did for us and how we did it. But I'm gonna go one step further now. My mother raised me now, as well, but she did love me as well too. So it's a twofold deal in some cases, but in other cases that we want to ensure that women have the same opportunities that we have, because if they have the fortitude to get out there and go get educated, go get their entrepreneurship going, why not give them the same opportunities we have? It's fair across the board, and they should not be discriminated against in any manner, because let's be honest. We all know we surround ourselves with women because they just get the job done. Let's just be honest with that. But we still educate our brothers and bring them up to the level, because some of them just don't know. And that's cool too, but it's our job to reach our hand back to lift them up in every possible way, and exactly in the same way as we do women. And for the ones that are in my community, just empower them to take leadership roles. And I remember this one particular story. I encouraged her, she was complaining about the HOA. I encouraged her to do these things, and she did that. And now the HOA is thriving, even with more membership and more finances, and they see for themselves how one community can truly take it back. And it was led by women. So I love empowering women. It's a beautiful thing.
Thank you so much. Mr. Jones, can you tell us and share with us how your relationship with women in leadership in government as well as your community?
I will say that in the time that I've been in office, it has been great. We can agree to disagree and still, go have a Coke or wings after council meeting. Our leadership in our city manager, assistant city manager, finance director, HR, police chief are all women. And so we have been able to put women in positions that have been traditionally held in some cases by men for several years, but we've been able to change it over, find some people that were qualified, knew what they were talking about, and put them in those leadership roles that run the city on a day-to-day basis. On council, I am the only council member, male council member. The mayor is a male, but all the ladies are also female. But we have a great working relationship. We can talk and hash things out. And when it's all said and done, we're still family. So I'd say it's been a great relationship in the last 14 years.
Thank you so much. Mr. Jackson, share with us your views and working with women in leadership and in government in your area in North Carolina.
I thank the Creator for the opportunity to have strong women that came before me. I have one of my aunties, a mother's surrogates that one served as chair of the Board of Education. One was a state senator. And they're right here in my neighborhood. I had that opportunity. I grew up in a community where you had at one point, it was primarily military. So before, most of the men would go off and be stationed everywhere in different areas, but the women would stay here with the families. So those are the houses I would in and out. It was an anomaly in my community to have single family households, but I grew up in one. My dad was a Marine Corps when he ended up going out to California, staying out there for years. So, going back to the strength and nurturing of women and the love they brought to me. At the same time, I look back at when I look at the movie Black Panther, and you see a security force, they're all women.
Right.
That's right.
And I find the women in my community will stand up quicker for me than the men. And what really bothers me in this community, as a military community, the average person that retires from the military is usually about 50 years old. If that, they don't depend on anybody in this city to actually pay them. A lot of them, I guess, they still like titles, so they become bishops with 3 people in their churches, or they become pastors, but they don't stand up. So that's one of the most disappointing things that I have to deal with when it comes to the strength of the male in my area. But going back with serving recently, it's disturbing that I served with a sister, a lady of color on my city council, but she had decided that she didn't like me anymore. So we don't work together. It's straight no chaser. We don't, and she don't even understand how to use her power because she's the only female on the council. And a lot of times those white males don't want to, I won't say the way I really want to say it. They don't mind beating Tim Buck and putting salt in his wounds and putting him in the public square. But Mammy, they agree with a lot of times. I'm just drawing the picture. and she don't know how to use her power for that because, you know, like I said, going back to what the brothers say about knowledge itself. If once you lose that and you lose your connection to your people, even to your people that you serve, supposed to serve, the area and we go on. Let me
You're on the
That's too much
soapbox.
like right.
Go ahead.
I hear you. I hear
we
you.
had a hurricane called Florence to come. We had we lost 30 units. Unfortunately, nobody got hurt, but we lost 30 units where we have 75% of the people on subsidized Section 8. I called the young lady out to come out when FEMA showed up. Didn't show up then, didn't show up anytime afterwards. This is no war. You know, that's why it's important to educate people because there was enough people in that community for her to be voted out.
Wow. Okay.
I call it unrepresentative representation. And you know, you can't stand up for your own. Who can you stand up for?
All right now.
That's right.
Amen. And I do appreciate your honesty and being open about, and I know it's not always peachy keen with working with our own, working with the opposite sex. So, but I do appreciate your honesty and knowing that it's not going to always be what we want it to be, working with people of our community and working with women in general. But as we are approaching, we have about 15 more minutes, and I have a few more questions I want to get into everyone, so we can so I can get 3 more separate conversations, 3 topics in. But I do want to keep it. And I have a personal issue myself with the Texas laws that have been put into place regarding women and abortion. And I'm not going to ask you if you are for or against, but I want to know, what do you feel about, and if you could do it briefly for me, just each one of you tell me what you feel about the Texas law itself. And you don't have to share whether you are for or against abortion, but I just thought it was just a bit much. But I'm a female, I'm a woman, I'm going to hush on that, but I want to ask you, what do you feel about when you are coming into people's personal lives, making a decision about something that you cannot go through yourself? So if I can start with you, let's go with Mr. Reeves. Can you tell me, you don't have to say if you for or against abortions, but how do you feel about that Texas law that was just passed?
Well, I'm gonna be honest here because it's funny you're gonna be first because I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay. Well, Texas passed an abortion. Well, they made abortions illegal. And for people that assist women with having abortions, they will be fined, and some other crazy atrocities going along with that. And women are having to resort back to illegal abortions or traveling across state lines, and they can be fined, and even the people that assist them having abortions.
Yeah, okay, so that's
since you talked about the policy and policy updates and changes, I just kind of wanted to come to you first, since that was part of your
correct, because I want to know how many women was on there for the policy committee. You know, those
probably none. I think it was a room full of all of the opposite color of us. They were, and I'm not going to call out any.
And if they lack the color of us, I think that we have some things that affect our women there at birth as well. That's significant. Yeah, I'm just gonna say right there, policy needs to be severely looked at in the media forum, and hopefully people can understand that until you get that happening, you know, you're all marching on the street and that's gonna end right there. You got to go to the polls over there and make sure that people meet your viewpoint and then execute it through policy change.
All right.
I hear you. There.
I hear you.
Yeah,
okay, thank you. Mr. Jones, I saw you cringe a little. I mean, Mr. Baker, I saw you cringe a little bit when just knowing though that how people are making decisions. White men are making decisions. I'm just going to put it out there. They're making decisions on a woman's body, that personal. What do you feel about that? Not saying that you are for or against abortions, but what do you think about that particular policy?
Well, first of all, I'm one of these guys kind of like radically honest.
Okay, your voice went down a little bit.
I pride myself on being what I consider radically honest. And And I'll start with another quote from the person in my generation. Tupac said, "And keep your head up."
Yes, he did.
And since a man can't make one, he has no right to tell a woman when and where to create one.
All right.
Now,
That's
now, I mean,
bingo.
we done. We can leave it there. We can leave it right there.
but I felt like I was thrown a lob by the moderator to just say, she said, white men are telling. Like, first of all, black men, we've never been able to tell a black woman how to do or what to do when it comes to her personal decisions, ever. Like, that's not what we're able to do. So, I mean, that's why Alice Walker coined the phrase womanism as opposed to feminism, because it includes black men. And there's no separation for us. Like, we're not the oppressors for black women. They stand under the same, actually, they're the only factor that's not under this umbrella of this white male patriarchal society we live in. And if you think about that umbrella and the white male is able to hold it, I'm under it because I'm a male, not because I'm black. The white woman is under it because she's white. And so there's coverage for us, but the black woman is not necessarily falling under that coverage. But he's dealing with an issue with his woman that he can't come out and say publicly. So they're legislating it. How are they legislating it? They're saying by 2042, we're going to be a minority population in America.
All right.
So it's vital that y'all keep having babies.
Okay, I hear you. I mean, hear you.
We're answering it because you're asking it respectfully, but this is about a white man and his woman. And
okay, and annihilation, I feel. But go ahead.
Well, of course it is. I mean, if you're going to be just as radically honest as me, I want to flip the camera and ask you, because that's exactly what it is. I mean, like, this isn't an issue for us. This is like, hey, y'all can't keep killing our babies. Y'all killing the next future generations. Y'all see it's a numbers game.
Right, so, but that goes
when it comes to telling us what we're supposed to do, it's a real tricky game. And it's starting here with telling them what to do with their bodies as far as abortion. And I'm not going to touch, and so I'm not going to go too far into telling people what they do with their bodies, because we're still telling people what to do with their bodies right now when it comes to this shot. But I'm going to put a pin in it because you haven't touched it, so I shouldn't either.
Well, and I was going to leave.
I yield for good when it comes to that too.
Right, and that is another question, because I do have another question that's going to come up dealing with COVID. So I will let Mr.
Right, you let me answer mine, so let me just go.
So, and I won't even ask you publicly, have you been vaccinated? I'm not going to even ask you that, okay? So we're going to go next with, I believe, Mr. Jones, you should be next, and then we'll go with, or did you?
Yeah, I agree with Councilman Baker on the Texas law. Again, why create all the stuff he said about it's a numbers game, but at the same time, there's no bills written for men that affect men. So I have a wife, and we have talked about this, and she and I have gone back and forth on the way it's written, and it just comes down to who gave us the authority to say what they can do with their body. I'll leave it there.
All right, now, if I understand, because you got to go home and be. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Dixon. Let's hear from you, Mr. Dixon.
I'll be honest with you. There's nothing else to say because I think Mr. Baker has stated it all. Just a line that he took from the text of none other the greatest poet of our time, Mr. Tupac Shakur.
Right.
All right.
Amen.
All right. Okay.
That was back in the 90s.
Mr. Jackson, I think you're the last one on this
one. I don't know what to say. I really have nothing to say, but going back to that whole idea of the annihilation, that's the fear they have. I'm not in a red area, I'm in a burgundy area. Okay.
All right.
And that's their fear. Their fear is that they won't last when the races come together. You see these old rednecks walking around with these little beige children. I said, now that's revolution right there.
All right.
So it does come back to that numbers game and that fear, and it's high time for a change to come with white men making decisions for not only for women but for all of us.
for all of us and for all of our
Yeah.
families. And I'm glad to hear you all
Yeah.
say that too, because you know, it just all boils back down to when we were discussing earlier about the policy and updates and changes that Mr. Reeves had mentioned earlier. And so just in order to keep us moving, we have about 10 minutes left, and I know we may go slightly over just a little bit because I do want to give you all a closing opportunity to give us about maybe a minute of closing, but I have a couple more questions and I'm going to try to make it as brief as possible, and you all can kind of condense your answers for me right now because we're down at the critical moments. But in regards to our young men, when we were talking earlier about men in our community and how we work well with our opposite sex and going now, our young men, what can you say? What can you say to a young man today, especially a young Black man? Can you tell me just what knowledge what nugget would you drop for our young Black men today? And I'm going to start with Mr. Jackson, but I need you all to kind of help me and kind of wrap it up and give me a condensed answer as possible. Talk to our Black men today, young Black boys today.
First of all, we just got to get involved with them. That's the first of all, and we have to be examples for them. But letting them know, first of all, you got to prepare for your future. You got to figure out, or how what they say, parental guidance suggested, and make them understand that you should be a leader. The war continues, and the war is never ending war when it comes to us becoming as great as we can in our society. You know, do not believe the lies that other people tell you who you are. You know, study beyond what they tell you in school about who you are. Read, take Professor Mark Baker's classes. And
Amen.
best thing I could probably tell them to do. Yeah, but you know, show them as you teach them, but also you got to listen to them so we'll know how to teach. They teach us how to teach them. So I think that's important. But just showing them a greater example and allowing them to step up and don't get in the way of where they need to go to.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. Mr. Dixon, what would you say to a young Black man today? What to him?
Conversations that I have with young Black men would be sit back, peep game, and pay attention. And that is something that my grandfather told me on his dying bed. Sit back, peep game, pay attention. Because in due time, anything that is not supposed to be will come to the surface. The things that you are doing right now, you aren't the first to do them. You won't be the last to do them. But somebody before you took that same course, but they learned a lesson out of it. So instead of you repeating the course or recreating the wheel, sit back and peep game and pay attention.
Thank you so much. Mr. Jones?
I will say, as a member of the 100 Black Men of America, they will be what they see. So one thing that I say to the young men is get a mentor. If any of them that listen, get a mentor. I'm on my third or fourth mentor in our chapter. And one of the things that is important is get with a mentor in an area that you want to be in. If you want to be a lawyer, find you a lawyer to help be your mentor. I think that's critical. Another thing is finance. Financial literacy in African-American communities is huge. I have been pushing for that and getting young kids involved for several years. Because I believe in the golden rule. The person with the goal makes the rules. So as long as they learn that early, a lot of the things that we see happening in our community when it comes to gangs and that kind of stuff is about money. Money and women is the things that while we fight. You take care of the money, then all this other stuff that happens on outside, it eliminates it because we'll have the money to do the things that we want to do. Because we need to be owning stuff and stop buying more stuff, and then we don't own.
Okay, consumerism. Okay, go ahead. Yes. Mr. Corey Reeves, thank you so much, Mr. Jones. Mr. Reeves, what would you tell a young Black man today, a young Black boy today?
When they say it all right, get educated, right? But education is bringing out what is within. Most of our kids out there, they ain't gonna go to college. They ain't gonna do that. But they can go get a certification. And what that certification yields is the opportunity to increase your economic impact within your home and get you on the road to being an entrepreneur, because that certification to specialize in there, starting a business. Therefore, about what you're saying, Mr. Brian, is because with that comes the education of financial literacy and things of that nature. You can't just throw it out to become an entrepreneur. No, train them not for a day, a week, but an ongoing situation. And politics without economics is simple without substance. And there's nothing to talk about, just do it. And it's as I helped this one guy get a certification 3 years ago in the field of environment remediation. He now has his own business doing that. And that is the best return on investment you can do, because we have to invest in our youth. And we just do it. And that's empower them to say, you are not what they say. You are what he say that you are. Now, what do you say? Now, go do.
All right, now I like that. I like that, Mr. Baker.
Yes.
Talk to us, young
Can you hear
black man.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I would say that it's vital every month to study some type of Black history, to know who you are. I think it's so important to know who we are, because then it changes what we think of ourselves. Like if I took a picture of everybody standing in the room with my phone and I showed it to you, the first person you're going to look for is yourself in that picture, you know? And it's like our history doesn't show them anywhere. And in Georgia, they're trying to take that out of the classrooms, which I have a resolution, and I hope you support Councilman Reeves coming up on critical race theory and race education in the state of Georgia. Hopefully it should be on the next agenda. It's been completed for 3 months, but our mayor hasn't placed it on the agenda yet. Pause. The point of it is we say education is key, but at the same time, we speak with a forked tongue like the devil, because if education is key, we're always changing the locks. So I think I would just leave it with what, again, the great philosopher of the 21st century, Tupac, said, with all this extra stressing. He says, the question I wonder is, after death, after my last breath, then will I finally get to rest through this oppression? They punish the people that's asking questions, and those with possessions take from the ones without possession. What I would tell them is the message I stress to make it stop, study your lesson, and don't settle for less. Even a genius has his questions. Be grateful for blessings. Don't ever change. Keep your essence. The powers in the people in politics we address. Now, when Tupac said that, he was speaking to us so far in advance and eternally. And I think that the biggest thing that we can do now, a lot of our kids, when they get into confrontations, you know, the coolest 3 words that you can say, I tell my son, is, you got it. It's 3 simple words. You still get to keep your cool, and you still get to move on. If you got a conflict that's coming your way and you know that you're above it, yo, you got it. And you can still save face and keep it moving. I mean, and they have to internalize and inwardly digest that when ego takes the wheel, you'll never get where you're going. Again, when ego takes the wheel, you'll never get where you're going. So there's a time to be dangerous. There's a time to be militant, but it's always a time to think. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you all so much. I'm down to my last 2 questions. And I know Ms. Damita is still sitting over there, kind of still in a tensy because of the power, but I know she hates her power is out right now. But if you all could give me about,
okay, you got a camera phone.
Say that again. Oh, she tried that too. She tried that too. And listen,
technology limits the excuses.
Okay, she tried it and then cut back out again. But so we're gonna try to wrap this up. But I know we have a couple more. I got a couple more questions, I promise. And because we lost a little time in the beginning, but let's go with this next question. It's about our precious cargo of our senior citizens, and we know that they are the reason. Those shoulders are the ones that we lean on and stand on and stood on. What can we do, or what are you doing for your community when it comes to the seniors in your community? And I want to take that to Mr. Dixon.
Well, I'm glad you asked me that question, because working with senior citizens, that is what I've done in the last 7 years working in fair housing. So this is a subject that is very a passion of mine. When you work with the citizens in our area, what I have done was we've placed placed programs in place with one of our community action groups here in town. What we did is this summer, we made sure that we had monies in funds that was utilized from the CDBG COVID funds that was sent in. That's a part of the CARES Act. We put that into place to make sure that we kept our senior citizens living independently while being aging in place. And so what we did was we made sure that we had the resources that they needed to make sure that they were aging in place when it comes to their medications, their rent. Because even though some of these citizens are on Social Security and disability, we also have to worry about if they choose in between getting groceries, or if they're choosing between getting groceries and their medications. And so that is one of the biggest issues that we are dealing with here in our area. So one thing that I always will let you guys know is no matter what we do and no matter how far we go, we always have to reach back and remember the individuals that helped us along.
Thank you so much. I want to go back to Mr. Brian Jackson, because you mentioned affordable housing earlier also. So can you tell me briefly, can you tell me what are you doing and what will you do for our seniors while you are in a position?
Well, one thing, like you said, affordable housing is just take into account that they do need it, and just trying to move forward. Sometimes that's we don't do what we need to do for our seniors across the board. One of the things I just try to do is just to be present. I always say when my mom, after she passed, is like, what did I do to deserve all the love I get from these older women, in my lifetime? But just trying to be present. One of the things that initiatives I was trying to do before COVID, and just trying to figure out around it now, is that try to get the younger people working directly with the seniors, because a lot of them don't get that wisdom, because the parents and the grandparents became younger and younger over the years. And it's still I still have mentors now that I reach to try to still learn, because they've walked in places where I haven't gone yet. So that's the thing, is just trying to make sure as we do affordable housing, we definitely do not neglect them. We try to bring food to them. At times been involved with other organizations and groups that we could drop off food to those in need. So, and just trying to show up. That's what we're doing around here. Just trying to show up and be there as much as we can.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Let's go with Mr. Reeves. And what are you working towards, or what are you working on, or to help our seniors in the community?
Well, actually, I'm glad that you said that, because Elder, this is a topic for me that is very close to home and my heart, because I have a passion for seniors. As used to go visit my grandmother, and so, but that it's also too that it's weird to provide them their greatest return on their investment, which they're to enjoy now, as they have put in the work for so long. Now we owe it to them to give them the best environment that it is upon their retirement, so and to live out the years. One of the things that we have underway is a senior housing that's 55 and up, and that will forever be in there for low to moderate income levels. And this is just kind of one of a test pilot of cottage home style. And also that when you look at the housing deal that for seniors, you got to think that you want something affordable, but you also want some communities that's mid and to upper class as well, because we do have that group population here as well. So, and then another thing that I have launched through one of my nonprofit cohorts is Senior Connect. And so the number one demographic in purchases of smartphones are seniors. So they got this big little box of this computer right there. What do you do with it? Well, and I speak to Mr. Jackson, the point, we're connecting the youth senior gap through technology, because we just had our first class graduate. We would teach them how to use our iPhone and stuff like this. Now they can do a Zoom. And it's the funniest thing, because when they learn something new, it's just like now they're experts. Now they want to go more. Now they want to do podcasts. Okay, I mean, but the veterans are there, and so we get ready to ready to go to our second round. But the graduates of the first round, now I'm looking for seniors, juniors, and seniors that's in high school to connect with the whole senior, but have that one-on-one Geek Squad type deal, but our senior citizen will be getting the education or education of learning how to use those smartphone devices, and that young person gonna get the wisdom that and educated on things that they'll never get educated on, and that's if you bridge that gap through technology, and that's what we're doing.
And that's wonderful too. I'm glad that you said that, because it really allows during this COVID time to be able to keep seniors connected with their families, being able to help them to still be in touch with the world, and we can physically see them and make sure that they're okay. And so
Absolutely.
anyway, I won't deviate from that, but I wanted to get Mr. Jones and then Mr. Baker's information onto what they are doing to help our seniors while they are serving.
Well, yeah, prior to me getting on city council, we already had a policy in place that seniors 65 and older did not pay city taxes. So that was already in place prior to me even getting on city council. One of the things that I'm seeing now that is coming a little faster than I anticipated, but it's good. Affordable housing for seniors. What's happening now is you have that baby boomer population that's now retiring, and they need places to live. And when we say affordable, it's all different in each one of our cities. What might be affordable in my city may not be affordable in North Carolina. It might be different. And the housing numbers that we're having now are crazy. When you think about if my mom was going to buy a house right now, she's retired. These houses are $200,000-$300,000 now. They're on fixed income. So, we've been able to work with groups to bring housing to our area. We have a location, Christian City, that a number of people know about, which is pretty much a retirement community. And they are partnering with other organizations that are building affordable housing, affordable for seniors housing in that area, and also bringing doctors closer to them so they don't have to travel far. I go, before COVID, I would always go to HOA meetings over in the senior community just to hear what's going on in the community and get feedback from them, and talk, go to breakfast whenever possible, just to sit down and talk, just to hear from them, because there's a lot you can gain, especially when they have lived in the same house probably 80 years. They can tell you what happened long before you moved into the community. You get a lot of information. So I think it's important to listen to them and find out what's happening, because in some cases, just in City Hall, we had people that were retired and they took all the institutional knowledge they had with them when they retired, but they knew exactly where the pipes and stuff were in the ground that weren't on the map.
Okay. All right.
Because they never took
vitally important. That's right.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Mr. Baker, can you give us what are you helping to do for our seniors while you are serving in the community? Okay. We can't hear you.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's okay.
As a 4-year servant leader, I have a great rapport with my senior community. Almost too good, I would say at times, because I gave them my personal cell phone number. Trying to be that different guy, Okay. And I love you, Miss Drummond, but she keeps me on the phone forever. I have my mom who lives in my district, a retired MARTA police officer, who, makes sure that she holds my foot to the fire, and she reminds me, hey, you my son, but I ain't got to vote for you.
All right, now, come on, Mama.
That it's a big deal, but it's like, at the same time, during this pandemic, it's like, I jokingly tell them, but I'm almost telling the truth about it. I have some of them that call so late at night. I say, all right, y'all, when we got an HOA, I say, look, y'all call me all times of the night. But if you call me at 3 o'clock in the morning and tell me, Miss Drummond, that your light is out in front of your house, I'm going to do whatever I can. I'm going to come over to show you how to use C-Click Fix the next day. And we're going to do all of this stuff. But you know what? When they fix it, I'm going to call you back 3 o'clock that morning and tell you that you can see if you like it. But like I go out, I have the PPE gear. They all have my numbers. I literally took the list and reported to their homes with PPE, KN95 masks. I have an event to feed seniors and everybody else in the community, but my seniors, they make sure that they're targeted every single month, once a month, on mostly every third Friday. This Friday I have it. coming up, the 24th, in Old National Parking Lot, where I give away 20 to 50,000 pounds of foods and toiletry every single month since April. I've started this. And along with that program, I'll bring prominent leaders that wouldn't normally make it to our city or our area. I started with Dr. Umar Johnson in April. I had Brother Reza Islam in May. I've had Chris Cole from BWO, Building Wealth Opportunities, Robin Ruth Simmons, who wrote the nation's first reparations legislation, and several other guests who I bring to the community, where they can pull up and turn their radio stations to a certain dial and hear what's going on, whereas they don't have to be dealing with the social distancing issues. They can hear the stage from their vehicles when we put the food in their trunks. Also, I have a brand new senior facility, which was one of my campaign promises to my area, coming to my district. We just approved it a couple months ago, and I'm so proud that this senior facility is coming. It'll be underway soon. And the biggest thing is, for the first time in the history of our city, I negotiated with the developer, whereas he's going to pay up to $250,000, $250,000 for a traffic calming device adjacent to this new facility that's coming on 138. So I have a great rapport, and I build with them. I live with them. They stay on my head, needless to say, and I'm happy to be their servant leader.
Thank you all so much. I know we've gone over, and thank you for your additional time, but we're about to wrap up now. And I want to give each one of you a 30-second, I'm going to be timing you. I need a 30-second exit statement just to leave for our community that you serve. And we will start with Councilman Jackson, since you were the first on today. Can you give us a 30-second closing statement for your community in North Carolina?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for the opportunity again. These brothers proved that if you could collaborate together, there's so many great things that can happen. And I'm gonna continue to work to bring my community together. As an elected official, you have to let the people know that they count, first of all. I think the reason why people don't vote now is because the same reason they don't go to church. They don't think they count. So that's what we continue to do, is continue to love by showing love. And I'm gonna just continue to work hard to people, let them know I'm approachable and that we can come together, and I represent them, and they should work with me so we could change Jacksonville.
Thank you so much. Mr. Dixon, Lima, Ohio, tell us your community. Give us a closing exit statement for them.
Lima, Ohio, our pride for our city runs deep. And 4 years ago, you entrusted me to be the voice of City Hall for your community. I thank you for allowing me to serve. I want to continue to doing that serving to meet your needs where you are at. We may be a city that is called small Chicago and small Detroit, but at the end of the day, we are Lima strong. That is Lima strong. We are Lima people with Lima sense, with Lima strength. I thank you, Ms. Chatman, and the radio of WCEG network for allowing us, Lima, Ohio, right in the middle of Toledo and Dayton, be a part of this experience and this platform. And to all of my fellow co-mates that is on this platform this evening, it is a pleasure to be with you all. Thank you again.
Thank you again. Mr. Corey Reeves.
Now, if
your
he was gonna say
community.
lima beans, I was about to lose it. Okay, I was about to be hungry. Okay?
Yeah, we lima beans.
But get this, I want to come visit Lima. I want to, so. But I just want to thank you for allowing us to take stand collectively together, as what just came out of here is cohesive ideals that we can put in together and go forward, move forward, and progress forward. And so I think that's important. And and take back to our respective communities new solutions. And and I will just leave with my community that no matter the C word, the competition, understand, and whatever previous administration or next administration, understand, if the people is the common denominator, the work is a continuation on, so a transition period, and getting updated on that, so your work can continue to be on, because it's about what's now, and the power of now far outweighs the regret of yesterday.
Thank you so much, Mr. Reeves. Mr. Jones.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for the invite and the opportunity to collaborate today with my fellow council members from across the country. This has been an informative discussion that I hope all the listeners really gain something from it. For Union City, what I hope that we have is open conversation. I've always said, call me, email me, let's talk. There's no conflict out here that we can't have a discussion about and try to work a plan. What we've all talked about together are things that we have one vote on in our council. And if you want to be involved in the process, let's talk. Let's get everybody involved. One vote is not going to change it. We need multiple votes. You know, one email is not going to bring you Olive Garden to a community, but 50,000 emails might. So if that's what you want in your community, we have to work together to get there. And I thank you for your time, for listening to this conversation today, and hope to hear from many of you soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Baker. Tupac
Yes, ma'am.
ideology. Come on, bring us a closing exit statement.
I'm leaving Tupac alone because y'all gonna think I'm crazy.
No, come on. We love it. We love
Far from
it.
it, brother.
He was ahead of his time. He was ahead of his time.
He definitely was. But I just would like to first just give my information because I'm in District 7 and I work in a bubble, you know, with my ideas because I'm a little out of the box. But I work collectively with my colleagues on council because they've been, you know, again, somebody said you can't do anything if you don't have the votes. So I'm grateful for my colleagues for allowing the legislation that comes up to be progressive for our city. But I would just like to say mark.baker@cityofsouthfulton.ga is my email address. I don't have a Facebook, but I'm at Councilman Mark on Instagram. And it was just a pleasure to sit amongst you guys. I love you guys. I've met everybody here personally. My brother in Jacksonville, you know you my guy. Every National League of Cities, that's my road dog. Brother in Union City, of course, Corey, we talked an hour while I was out of the country, and I'm going to see that phone bill, but I ain't going to regret it because I love you. And I got it in Lima, Ohio, because I'm originally from Chicago. But with that being said, I will leave you with the words of Stevie Wonder in the greatest song ever written. He ends it it's called As. And when you talk about I'll be loving you till the day that 8 times 8 times 8 is 4, and to the day that are no more, all these great words. At the end, though, he gets angry with the song. I was an A&R for Apple City Records, so bear with me. He gets angry at the song, and he's like, we all know. Nobody understands that. I used to growl with him when I was little, but I dissected his words, and they're the most powerful words. He says, we all know at times life has its troubles that'll make you wish you were born in another time and place. But you can bet your lifetimes that and twice that double that God know exactly where he wanted you to be placed. So make sure when you say you're in it, but not of it, you're not helping to make this earth a place sometime called hell. Change your words into truth and then change that truth into love. And maybe our children, grandchildren, or their great-grandchildren will tell. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Woo, Lord have mercy. We're gonna give 2 snaps. We're gonna snap this one out of here today. I want to thank you all so much.
Give credit. I wrote a dissertation. I got to give credit for everybody I mentioned. That's Steve.
This has been a pleasure. I'm not going to tell Damita. I'm glad our power went out, but I really enjoyed this conversation today. I mean, really, this has just been phenomenal, and it has just opened a lot. I hope that a lot of people will be able to see your true self. You know, we could have had a formal platform where we all tried to be all politically correct, but I believe you all came from your heart. So from WCEG, Take a Stand, and Ms. Damita Chatman, I want to thank you all for joining us today. Mr. Jackson, Councilman Jackson, wanted to make sure that it was okay if Ms. Damita shared your phone numbers with him. And if
Absolutely.
It's okay, we'll make sure that you all stay in communication. And we will be talking again. This won't be our last conversation. We want to remind everyone that local elections are coming up. Get out to the polls, early voting, request your absentee ballots. And we know that laws and policies have changed to try to make it difficult. And thank you, Mr. Reeves, for helping us, making sure that we keep policy updates going. We want to thank everyone for your affordable housing, talking about our seniors and economic development, and talking to our young men, and everything that we brought to the table today. It was from the heart, and I thank you all from WCEG. You all take care. You will be hearing back from us again. And I know Ms. Damita is just still burning in her seat over there because she couldn't. I want to thank you all personally as owner of WCEG, and my assistant, Ms. Vivian, for coming on and allowing us to put you out there. This will be, it was aired live on Facebook. It will be archived on YouTube under WCEG Network. Have a good evening, and God bless you all. And thank you so much.
All
Bye-bye.
right, thank you.
God bless
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you.